I, 32M, live with my wife Brittany, 30F, and our two kids, Emma, 7F, and Lucas, 4M. My mother Linda, 58F, moved in with us 6 months ago after she lost her job and couldn't afford her apartment anymore. The situation has been difficult from the start, but I never imagined it would end up like this. I met Brittany when we were both in college. She was working part-time as a waitress to pay for her education while I was finishing my business degree. My mother Linda never approved of our relationship because Brittany came from a working-class family. My mom had always dreamed of me marrying into one of the wealthy families she knew from her country club. When Brittany got pregnant with Emma during our final year of college, my mother completely lost it. She tried everything to break us up, from offering to pay for an abortion, which we didn't want, to threatening to cut me off financially. I had a trust fund from my late father that I was set to receive at 25, and she threatened to contest it if I stayed with Brittany. She even went as far as setting up blind dates with other women behind Brittany's back. But I stood my ground. I loved Brittany and wanted to be there for her and our baby. We got married in a small ceremony that my mother refused to attend. I started working at my friend's tech startup while finishing my degree, and Brittany took a semester off but went back to complete her education after Emma was born. We struggled initially but made it work. Over the years, my mother maintained a cold but civil relationship with Brittany. She would visit occasionally to see Emma and later Lucas, but always made subtle digs about Brittany's parenting or our modest lifestyle. Brittany handled it with grace, never responding to the provocations and always encouraging the kids to have a relationship with their grandmother. Things changed 6 months ago when my mother lost her job as an event coordinator at the country club. She had worked there for 15 years, but apparently had a falling out with the new management. At 58, she struggled to find another job that would pay enough to maintain her lifestyle. She quickly fell behind on her rent and was facing eviction. Brittany was actually the one who suggested we let her move in with us. I was hesitant because I knew how my mother could be, but Brittany insisted it was the right thing to do. We have a 4-bedroom house, so we converted our home office into a bedroom for my mother. The first few weeks were awkward but manageable. My mother helped with cooking and watching the kids after school, which allowed Brittany to pick up extra shifts at the pharmacy where she works. The problem started gradually. At first, it was just little comments about how the house wasn't clean enough or how the kids watched too much TV. Then she started criticizing Brittany's cooking, insisting on taking over meal preparation because she didn't want her grandchildren eating processed food. She would reorganize the kitchen and laundry room without asking, claiming she was just trying to make things more efficient. Brittany tried to keep the peace by accommodating most of my mother's suggestions. She even asked for cooking lessons, hoping it would help them bond. But nothing was ever good enough. My mother would criticize how Brittany dressed the kids for school, saying Emma's clothes were too casual and Lucas's haircuts were too long. She complained about the kids' packed lunches, saying Brittany was feeding them too much sugar when she included a small cookie or juice box. The situation escalated when Emma started learning to ride her bike without training wheels. Brittany and I spent a weekend teaching her in our driveway. Like any kid learning to ride, she had a few falls. One fall was a bit harder than the others, and she got some bruises on her arms from trying to catch herself. We immediately took her to urgent care to make sure nothing was broken. The doctor checked her out and said she was fine, just some normal bruising that would heal in a few days. Last week, I was at work when I got a panicked call from Brittany. She was crying and said there were police officers at our house. I rushed home to find 2 police officers and a CPS worker interviewing Brittany in our living room. My mother had called them claiming Brittany was physically abusing the kids. She showed them pictures of Emma's bruises from the bike accident as evidence, completely leaving out the context of how they actually happened. I was able to pull up the photos on my phone showing Emma learning to ride her bike, falling, and our subsequent visit to urgent care. We also had the doctor's report documenting that the injuries were consistent with a bicycle fall. The officers and CPS workers seemed satisfied with our explanation, especially after interviewing Emma, who excitedly told them about learning to ride her bike. When they left, I confronted my mother. Instead of showing any remorse, she doubled down. She said she had been observing Brittany's behavior and was convinced something was wrong. She claimed she had seen other suspicious bruises on the kids, completely normal childhood scrapes and bumps, and that Brittany was too rough when disciplining them. Completely false. We don't even believe in spanking. I lost it. I told her to pack her bags and get out of our house immediately. She started crying and saying I was choosing my wife over my own mother. She brought up how she raised me alone after my father died in a car accident when I was 7, and how she sacrificed everything for me. But I couldn't listen to her manipulations anymore. I gave her $500 for a hotel and told her she had 2 hours to pack her essential belongings. She could arrange to pick up the rest of her things later when I was home to supervise. My sister Amy, 35F, is furious with me. She says I'm being cruel and that our mother was just worried about her grandchildren. She doesn't seem to understand how serious it is to make false abuse allegations that could have resulted in our children being taken away. My mother has been alternating between leaving tearful voicemails begging for forgiveness and sending angry texts accusing me of betraying her. Brittany is traumatized by the whole incident. She keeps wondering if my mother might try something like this again or what other lies she might spread about her. The kids are confused about why grandma left so suddenly, and it breaks my heart to try explaining it to them in a way they can understand. I've blocked my mother's number and told my sister that there will be no reconciliation. Some might say I'm being too harsh, but I believe trying to destroy your son's family by making false abuse allegations crosses a line that can't be uncrossed. But with all the family drama and pressure to forgive her, I need outside perspective. Ida? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since I kicked my mother out, and the situation has gotten much worse than I expected. I thought removing her from our house would solve the problem, but she's been causing even more chaos from the outside. Last week, my cousin Mark sent me screenshots from our extended family WhatsApp group that I left years ago. My mother has been posting long messages in the group almost daily, telling horrible lies about Brittany. She's claiming that Brittany is an alcoholic who regularly comes home drunk and hits the kids. She said Brittany locks the kids in their rooms without food as punishment and that I'm too scared of Brittany to do anything about it. These accusations are completely absurd. Brittany works as a pharmacy technician and takes her job very seriously. She barely drinks, maybe a glass of wine on special occasions. We've never believed in physical punishment, and both of us agree that withholding food is abuse. But my mother has been spinning normal parenting moments into something sinister. For example, she posted about how Brittany starves the kids because she monitors their sugar intake and doesn't let them have unlimited snacks. She twisted the fact that we have child locks on the kids' bedroom doors, which we installed when Lucas was 2 and kept trying to wander downstairs at night, into evidence of Brittany imprisoning them. The worst part is that some of our relatives are actually believing these lies. My Aunt Patricia called me crying about how she should have noticed the signs of abuse when she visited last Christmas. My Uncle Robert, who I've always respected, sent me a long email about how turning a blind eye to child abuse makes me just as guilty. 3 of my cousins have reported Brittany's social media accounts as abusive and tried to get them shut down. My sister Amy finally came to see me yesterday and revealed some disturbing information. Apparently, my mother had been planning this campaign against Brittany for months before the CPS incident. Amy found a notebook in my mother's things when helping her move into the hotel. It contained detailed documentation of what my mother called suspicious behavior. She had been secretly taking photos of every minor scrape or bruise on the kids, normal things like Emma skinning her knee on the playground or Lucas bumping his head on the coffee table. The notebook had dates, times, and her twisted interpretation of how these injuries must have happened. She even wrote down every time Brittany raised her voice or seemed aggressive, like when Brittany yelled stop because Lucas was about to touch the hot stove, or when she firmly told Emma to stop running by the pool. But the most shocking part was learning about the voice recorder. My mother had bought a small recording device that looked like a decorative pin. She would wear it around the house, trying to catch Brittany saying or doing something abusive. Amy listened to some of the recordings and said they only captured normal family life, kids crying over homework, Brittany singing while cooking, regular parent-child conversations about behavior and consequences. But my mother had written her own sinister interpretations of these mundane interactions. When she couldn't get the evidence she wanted from her recordings, she decided to use Emma's bike accident as her opportunity. She had taken close-up photos of the bruises while pretending to apply arnica cream that evening. She even tried to question Emma alone about how she really got hurt, but Emma kept excitedly telling the bike learning story. I'm absolutely disgusted by this level of calculated manipulation. Brittany had a panic attack when I told her about the secret recordings. She keeps wondering what else my mother might have documented and twisted. We've had to explain to Emma's school and Lucas's daycare that their grandmother is not allowed to pick them up or have any contact with them. We also told them to be on alert for any attempts by her to spread her lies to school staff. I've contacted a lawyer about getting a restraining order. The lawyer said my mother's behavior shows a concerning pattern of harassment and defamation, and we have a good case for getting legal protection. We're gathering all the evidence, the notebook Amy found, the WhatsApp messages, the fake abuse reports on social media. My sister is now conflicted about the whole situation. She admits that finding the notebook and recordings shocked her, and she understands why we're pursuing legal action. But she still thinks there might be a way to resolve this without destroying the family. She suggested family counseling, but I told her that ship has sailed. You can't come back from trying to have someone's children taken away. I've started responding to relatives who believed my mother's lies. I sent them photos and documentation of the bike accident, along with security camera footage from our driveway showing the exact moment Emma fell. I also shared screenshots of Brittany's work schedule to prove she's not out drinking, and our Ring camera footage showing normal family life. Those who still choose to believe my mother's lies despite clear evidence to the contrary have joined her on my blocked list. Brittany is trying to stay strong for the kids, but I can see how much this is affecting her. She's always been proud of being a good mother, and having her reputation attacked like this is devastating. The kids sense something is wrong but don't fully understand. Emma asked me yesterday if Grandma was mad at us because we're bad, and it broke my heart. We're trying to shield them from the drama while still being honest in an age-appropriate way. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and some unexpected information has come to light. The restraining order is in place, which has helped reduce my mother's direct harassment. She can no longer contact us or come within 500 feet of our home, the kids' schools, or Brittany's workplace. But the family drama continues, just in a different way. Last weekend, my uncle Kevin, my mother's younger brother, asked to meet me for coffee. He's always been the most level-headed member of the family and stayed neutral during this whole mess. During our meeting, he revealed something that puts my mother's behavior in a new light, though it definitely doesn't excuse it. According to Kevin, my mother had been seeing a therapist for the past 3 years, something she kept hidden from everyone. She started going after having a breakdown at my cousin's wedding, where she caused a scene because the bride had asked Brittany to be a bridesmaid instead of asking her opinion first. The therapist diagnosed her with severe anxiety and possibly some paranoid tendencies that they traced back to my father's death 25 years ago. For context, my father died in a car accident when I was 7. He was driving home late from work in bad weather, and his car slid off the road. My mother had asked him to stay home that night because of the storm, but he had an important meeting the next morning. She's always carried guilt about not insisting harder that he stay home. The therapist had specifically warned my mother about her tendency to project her trauma onto situations involving child safety. Apparently, she would obsess over worst-case scenarios and convince herself that by spotting danger signs early, she could prevent tragedies. She was making progress in therapy, but then she lost her job and her insurance 6 months ago, right before moving in with us. Kevin showed me some of my mother's old therapy journals that she had left at his house for safekeeping. Reading them was eye-opening. She wrote about having nightmares where she would see my father's accident, but with me or the kids in the car instead. She described feeling overwhelming anxiety whenever Brittany would drive the kids anywhere, convinced something terrible would happen. Her writings became increasingly paranoid after stopping therapy, focusing more and more on protecting the kids from imagined dangers. The therapist had specifically cautioned her about catastrophic thinking regarding child safety and warned her that her anxiety might make her see danger in normal situations. There were notes from sessions where they worked on distinguishing between real and imagined threats, and exercises for managing her urge to control situations. This information helps explain some things, like why she became so fixated on documenting every little injury and why she interpreted normal parenting moments as signs of abuse. She couldn't save my dad, so she transferred all that unresolved trauma and guilt onto this situation with my kids. My sister Amy, after learning about mom's mental health struggles, thinks we should be more understanding and try to help her get back into therapy. She even offered to pay for it since mom still hasn't found a new job. But while I feel sad about my mother's mental health issues, it doesn't change my decision to maintain firm boundaries. Having mental health struggles doesn't give anyone the right to try destroying someone else's life. My mother chose to stop therapy when she lost her insurance, but she could have told us she needed help. Instead, she let her paranoia escalate to the point of making false abuse allegations that could have torn our family apart. Brittany suggested that we could consider supervised visits with the kids in the future if my mother gets back into therapy and shows real change. But she made it clear that she'll never be comfortable having my mother in our home again, which I completely understand. The trust is permanently broken. Some family members are now using my mother's mental health as another way to pressure us into reconciliation. They say we're being cruel by maintaining the restraining order when she's clearly unwell. But I see it differently. Her mental health issues help explain her behavior but don't excuse it. She made conscious choices to document, plan, and execute her campaign against Brittany. That shows enough awareness to be responsible for her actions. Update 3, it's been 6 months since everything happened, and I wanted to give a final update. My mother is still living with my sister Amy, and we haven't spoken directly despite her numerous attempts to reach out through other family members. Last month, she sent a lengthy letter through my uncle Kevin. In it, she apologized for her actions and said she's been back in therapy for the past 2 months. She wrote about understanding how her anxiety and unresolved trauma led to her behavior. However, near the end of the letter, she still included comments about how she notices Brittany doesn't dress the kids warmly enough and how Lucas seems anxious around his mother. This showed me that despite therapy, she hasn't really changed her core beliefs about Brittany. She also requested to see the kids during the upcoming holidays, suggesting supervised visits at my sister's house. She wrote that Emma and Lucas shouldn't be punished for her mistakes. But in the same paragraph, she mentioned that she still believes Brittany is not a good influence and that she worries about the kids' emotional well-being. I didn't bother responding to the letter. Brittany and the kids are doing much better now that things have settled down. We've established new family traditions without my mother. We spend more time with Brittany's family, who have been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. Brittany's parents often have the kids for weekend sleepovers, and her sister brings her kids over for weekly playdates. It's beautiful seeing the kids surrounded by family who genuinely love and support all of us. Emma still occasionally asks about grandma, especially when she sees her cousins with their grandmother. We've been honest with her in age-appropriate ways, explaining that sometimes adults make choices that hurt others, and while we can forgive them, we still need to protect ourselves from being hurt again. Lucas, being younger, doesn't really remember much about my mother anymore. The family pressure for reconciliation has increased with the holidays approaching. Amy keeps sending photos of my mother with her kids, trying to show me how good she is with them. Several relatives have attempted to guilt trip me by saying this might be my mother's last holiday season. She's perfectly healthy, they're just being dramatic. My aunt even tried to arrange a surprise meeting by inviting us to what was supposed to be just a family lunch, but my mother was there. We left immediately. I've made peace with my decision to keep my mother out of our lives. Brittany and my children's well-being comes first. The relatives who initially believed my mother's lies have mostly come around after seeing the evidence and witnessing her continued behavior. Those who still side with her are no longer part of our lives either. My sister tells me mom cries every time she sees pictures of the kids on social media, and that she keeps their old rooms at her house exactly as they were, hoping they'll visit someday. While this makes me sad, it also reinforces that she's still not dealing with reality. She's created this narrative of herself as the victim who lost her grandchildren, completely ignoring the fact that her own actions caused this situation. I know some people might think I'm being too harsh by maintaining these boundaries, especially given my mother's mental health struggles. But I've learned that sometimes loving someone means accepting that you can't have them in your life. My priority is protecting my wife and children from toxic behavior, even when it comes from family. We're focusing on moving forward and creating positive memories with people who respect and support our family unit. Sometimes the healthiest choice is the hardest one, but I know we made the right decision for our family.